Hey Douglas,
Hi, Shona, how are you?
I'm all right. So tell me, what is it like being leader of the best local authority in the whole of the UK?
Well, it's really tough, Shona. Of course, it was all down to me, but
Yeah,
seriously, it was a great team effort by everyone at Aberdeen City Council, and
but
I was watching the announcement as it came through, and actually got quite emotional because it is quite a really big thing for a Conservative-led council to be the best local council in the whole of the UK. So I think it was just a fantastic achievement by everyone involved, and maybe that's something you can aspire to, Shona.
well, but just to clarify, you're a co-leader, aren't you?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, whereas I'm just, the one and only leader. Yeah,
Ah, right.
yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Just to get that out there straight away. But
Uh-huh.
it's been a strange 9 months, hasn't it, in local government?
Yeah, well, that's it. I guess 9 months ago, we weren't expecting to be dealing with all the COVID stuff that we've had to deal with. And well, I don't know how you feel about it, but I always, you see the First Minister, she goes up and makes announcements every day in our daily party political broadcast. But it's left up to local authorities to deliver on all the stuff that she's coming out with. And most of the time, well, I don't know about you, but we don't get any notice on that at all.
No, it was pretty hairy at the start. She would stand up on a Thursday or Friday and announce shielding and food parcels were going to be delivered to every single home of everyone that was shielding. And local government was expected to do it on the Monday morning. And people were phoning up the council saying, "Where's my food box?" And we were running around like headless chickens as all of our teams and all of our staff. We had to move all of our staff from our neighbourhoods teams into delivering food boxes, as well as closing all of our schools, as well as rolling out blended learning, as well as doing all of that.
Mhm.
So it was at the start, back in March when lockdown hit, the first couple of months was really, really hairy.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's been difficult, but I think everyone in local government has just came together and delivered really well. Business grants as well is another thing that that was announced, and then suddenly we have to go on and deliver that to businesses to keep them afloat, really.
Yeah.
So we
But
turned that around really fast, and that was such a good thing.
remind me, who was top of the league table of councils and getting business money out? Who was it?
Yeah, I don't think the Council of the Year was top of that list,
I
but I'm
think
sure
it
we
was
weren't too
Scottish
far
Borders.
behind.
Actually, I
Okay.
think it was Scottish. I think it was Scottish Borders, if I remember rightly. Just
Hmm.
not that we're competitive or anything. How many Twitter
No,
followers have you got?
60 more than you.
And we're both still ahead of Andrew Poulsen.
Yeah, yeah.
He's got 3.
But the whole business grant thing. Well, for me, I kept getting infuriated
Yeah.
by the announcements that came out. The Scottish government had to be different in everything it was doing. It would have been
Oh
a
no.
far simpler process if we had just done exactly the same
Yeah.
as the rest of the UK. And that's why I always think that devolution has been mentioned recently, but things like that, if that was devolved straight, forget about the Scottish government and straight to local government, I think that would have been a lot easier for everyone to understand and for everyone to deliver on that. So,
I know. And you're so right. So, because in England, they've got this pothole fund now for local authorities that local authorities can bid direct into central government and get money to fix it. Now, as a council leader, the things we have to look after are collect the bins, fill the potholes, and cut the grass. And those are the most important things that people want to know about on the doorsteps. And anybody that's done canvassing, they know that those are the top issues on the doors. So if we had a similar thing from the Scottish government, and our funding for those things has been cut every single year, and much more of our budget is now ring fenced, and our core budget for the issues that local government actually do, our bread and butter issues, gets cut more and more and more. And the pet projects of the SNP,
yeah.
that funding increases all the time, and that would be your experience too.
Yeah, no, that's it. You're right. The ring fencing is one of the biggest issues we've got. The Scottish government they'll come out and they'll say every year, "Oh, it's flat cash," but what they don't tell you, there's more and more that you've got to do for the same or less money, and then when you're trying to set your budget, because so much of it's already ring fenced, you've got to be looking in the same areas that aren't ring fenced to make those savings. And it's budgeting is so difficult every year, and it's just going to get worse and worse and worse. And I think that was one of the good things that we did when we came into administration. We could see that the funding from the Scottish government was going to go down every year, And right at the start, we looked at how we could restructure the whole of the council, a new target operating model at that time. And I'm really glad that we did do that, because it's allowed us to try and minimise the impact to our residents by doing that.
Yeah, and protecting that frontline service, protecting those frontline services all the time has been our absolute #1 priority. And what we were talking about, the introduction about the iPads rolling out to every primary school child, that was about levelling the playing field, and it was about the fact that even the most disadvantaged child had the access to the same technology as the most advantaged child. So it was completely levelling the playing fields for all children. And that was a massive priority for me when I came into local government. So when I was elected 3 years ago, my chief exec sat me down and said, right, what is your priorities moving forward? And it was about youth mental health and about closing the attainment gap. And the advantage of being an administration in the council and the advantage of being leader of the council is that you can drive those agendas forward. And the whole Inspire Learning project that we've rolled out in the borders in the UK, every child from primary 4 upwards has been given an iPad, which meant when they went into lockdown, all of our kids were in full-time education. They'd sit down at 9 o'clock and they wouldn't get up again until 3:30 because they were in their classes with their teachers. And it made such a difference. And we've seen our attainment gap, even in the last year in the borders, reduce. So, being in administration and being in council and being a councillor is such a rewarding thing, and it's such a brilliant thing to do.
Mm-hmm. No, I think you're right. The SNP often talk about closing the attainment gap, but it's councils like Borders Council, ourselves, we're rolling out Chromebooks to every pupil as well. It's us that's actually doing that. We're doing it in spite of the SNP government, because if you look at what they did, with this, with schools earlier this year, when they weren't going to be going back until there was from the Conservatives to make sure that kids were back in schools learning. What that was going to do to the attainment gap was, it was crazy, because what we had in Aberdeen, we had private schools, they were all going back in face-to-face learning, but then all of our schools looked like they weren't going to be back, and that would have been real bad news for for generations to come. So it's good to hear that it's actually Conservative councils that are actually making the difference to the attainment gap, and not the SNP. And they'll try and take credit for that later on. We just need to make sure that everyone knows it was down to us, not them.
Yeah, totally. And it reminds me as well of the outdoor centres and funding for outdoor centres that are so vital to our young people, and that experience that they have of learning outside and having those risky experiences, which is even more important for our vulnerable children who are lacking confidence and lacking self-esteem. And it was us and Liz Smith in the Scottish Parliament that pushed and pushed and pushed for funding for those outdoor centres to come forward. And finally, last month, they managed to get that funding available for them. So that kind of thing, that the MSPs and local government working together can achieve really good things in the Scottish Parliament. So it's really important that we have that, that coordination and communication between local councils and MSPs. I think it's really important.
Yeah, no, that's spot on, and because one of the key things that I've been looking at for the northeast and been working with the local MSPs as well is around business rates in the city. It's been a huge issue for Aberdeen in the northeast for the last 5 years. So it was great to see that now we're going to be we're going to be challenging the extra delay to the tone date, the revaluation date, because that would have been that's a huge issue for us up here. So that was once again councils, MSPs working together, and we're going to make sure that we push the SNP hard on that one, because that's something that it needs to be addressed.
That's one of those really kind of technical local government type issues, isn't it? That it's hard for a lot of people to understand, but it actually makes a massive difference to businesses and economic development of the area. And it's one of those really kind of techie things that it's hard to get a grip of, but is really, really important.
Yeah. Well, economic development's it's a funny one. We're mentioning budgets earlier, that as a local authority, we want to do everything we can to grow the local economy, to make the place a better place. But we find that in Scotland now, it's failure almost that's rewarded. A council that we feel we get over 80% of our funding through either council council tax, business rates, and fees and charges. There's very little funding that we get from in terms of our grant funding. And we feel that every time we grow the economy, our revenue grant goes down. So we feel that we are punished for growth, and that's something I would love to see addressed. I think as if we can raise more money in the city, we should be able to keep some of it so we can reinvest and grow the economy more. But it doesn't seem like this SNP government get that. It's just they reward failure at every opportunity. And
if you don't raise your council tax, they threaten to take the money off of your grant, because you don't need the money, so they reduce your grant as a result. And it's like, no, we want to give we want to help our local people, and next year is going to be really tough for everybody in terms of people losing their jobs and all the rest of it. And we don't want to be raising council tax. We want to keep that to an absolute minimum. But if we don't get the money from the Scottish Government, who have had billions of pounds from the Westminster Government to help us through the COVID situation, and they're sitting on at the moment 1.2 billion of it, I think, that COSLA can't quite find at the moment. Where is that money? That money has to come to local government to help us help those that are living in our communities, because it's through local government that actually we're the ones that have the closest relationship with our local communities and know where the money needs to go.
Yeah. But I think I think some of the SNP councils are starting to wake up and feel the effects of the SNP austerity that's been inflicted on local government. I mean, it's just a pity that more of them don't speak up at budget time. But the slavish devotion that they have towards the masters in Edinburgh means that they stay quiet.
I know there shall be no dissent. No dissent allowed.
None allowed at all. So.
At least they're a party that can disagree with each other.
Absolutely, yeah. Because I think I've got the best council.
Yeah, but you're a co-leader.
Yeah. So anyway, so Shona, looking back over the last 3.5 years now that you've been leader and I've been co-leader, what's been your sort of achievement that made you most proud? Would you say? Or the policy that you brought in?
It's a toss-up. Again, it's about young people. So I used to be a youth worker in a previous life to this, and so young people have always been my heart and soul and what I really care about. So when I first came into post, we sat down and said, I want a full-time counsellor in every high school in the Borders. And that happened within 9 months of me coming into post, and it was a year and a half before the SNP came up with that policy, which still hasn't been totally fulfilled. So we had a full-time counsellor in every high school, and that's made a massive difference to the mental health of our young people in the Borders. And they carried on working right through COVID as well, using the iPad. So they were having sessions with all of their kids that they had contact with all the way through the COVID thing. So they were having weekly catch-ups and all the rest of it using the iPads. But certainly the iPads, I mean, when we did it when we put it through the budget, we knew that it would help with snow days, and we knew that it would help with, if kids were off long-term sick or something like that, they could use their iPads and still engage with education. But none of us had any clue that our schools were going to be closed for 3 months, and our kids were going to rely on this technology to access their lessons and access their classes. And we got so much flack from people saying, oh, you've spent so much money on the iPads. And it wasn't. It was 1% of our education budget a year. It wasn't a huge amount of money, but the difference that it made. And I have to say that it's the one policy that everybody who didn't like it went, oh yeah, all right, okay, we'll give you that one. Because it has. It's been absolutely incredible over the last 5 months when the schools have been locked down. And now, if any kids are self-isolating, any teachers self-isolating, if it's a whole class, that whole class still meets. They'll meet in their pajamas, but that class is still meeting all the time. And it's just been fantastic. I've got another friend whose daughter's got ME and was off school for a long time. And she used to have lunch with her friends because they would have their iPads. And her friends would set the iPads up in front of them and she would set it up at home and they would have lunch together. And it was that kind of the connectedness that was able to still happen. So so I think that's probably the best thing that I've achieved since being the leader of Scottish Borders Housing.
Yeah, and of course, I've got two kids as well, and you know, I can't imagine them now, not using technology. And it
Yeah.
seems to be in the past, people have been, oh, you can't give kids an iPad to go to school, but it'd be like us going back to work now without a laptop and without have access to email. The world changes, and how you teach kids has to change, and we'll have to use that technology that we've got, because kids are just, they expect it. And that's just how they're gonna operate.
Yeah.
So
So what
I
about
think
you?
that's
What's your biggest achievement in your last? Because you and I were both elected in 2017, weren't we? And
yeah.
so we became leaders, 3 days after we were elected, which was a bit crazy. So what was your biggest achievement in the last few years?
Well, I think looking back, it's things like what you might not expect from a conservative-led administration. Announcing a policy to deliver 2,000 new council houses. What a conservative leader doing that, but it's the right thing. It's the right thing to do,
Yeah.
and it's the right thing to improve the place and try and lift everyone out of not everyone's in poverty, lift people out of poverty and try and improve their lives, and that will help the whole local economy going forward. So I think that's a key thing that I'm really proud of. Going back to the technology element, the partnership we have on BP around our net zero vision that we have for the city. I think they've announced that there's only Houston and ourselves so far that partner with BP around that. Our partnership with Microsoft to try and, we spoke about kids using technology, but to try and digitize every sort of process and every interaction we have with our citizens, really. Just like people expect to be able to go do their shopping at any time and any place. Well, we've got to assume that our citizens would want to interact with us at any time and wherever they are. So I think that's been a key thing, and maybe another thing that I'm really proud of. We introduced a scheme called Food and Fun over 3 years ago, and that was all about providing school meals, out of term school meals, for people that might not be able to get a proper meal otherwise during the school holidays. And so far we've I think it's been like 25 meals through school holiday time that we've put out. So really proud of that also. So it's a couple of things you might not assume with a conservative council, but I think that's our core values, really, is to try and help people and improve their lives going forward.
Yeah. And we've got a year and a half to go. So I'm trying to think what's left. What would do? I mean, there's so much still to do in terms of attainment and economic development and post COVID and all that sort of thing. But and also getting re-elected in 2022 would be nice, and still being an admin as well, because admin is way much more fun than being in opposition. But what's top of your to-do list in the next year and a half?
Top of the list for us is definitely around our net zero vision for the city, and it's how we change as a place, change all public transport, change all the small things like, well, maybe not that small, but all the vans that the council have, all the cars the council have. We've made a pledge now that we shouldn't be buying any more diesel or petrol cars. These should all be either electric or hydrogen. So we're looking at ourselves, how we change to be a net zero city, but also developing the economy around net zero as well. Aberdeen is famous for oil and gas, and we want to change that and make it more for energy, low carbon energy. So we're looking at having that energy transition zone and really trying to make sure that we are the leader in things like hydrogen. We're the first city to have hydrogen double-decker buses. So that's just been rolled out recently. So I think more on that over the next year and a half, just to make sure that we are leading the way when it comes to energy transition. That's key for me.
My priority is definitely economic development and seeing if we can hold on to our young people a lot more. So people see the borders as a place to live and work. and borderlands. So the borderlands growth deal that we're currently negotiating with both the Scotland and the UK government is going to be a key part of that. So there's delivering those and delivering the lots of all those kind of things in the Scottish borders, and making it more environmentally friendly, as you said as well. Our recycling rates are starting to pick up now, but it goes back to the bread and butter, isn't it? It's fixing the roads, emptying the bins, cutting the grass, and making sure the kids are educated. And that's as council leaders, that's what we've got to concentrate on and deliver for our local communities.
And all with less money from the SNP government. So.
All with less money from the SNP government while not hiking up council tax. Yes, it's easy. Why can everyone do it?
Absolutely. Another thing that we will be focusing on is obviously the Freeport announcement from the UK government, and we see opportunities there, and it could be a real big benefit for the city. Unfortunately, it looks like the SNP government are against it. We don't know why. I think they're just against it because it's a UK government thing. So that'll probably be my next fight, because well, you know me pretty well now, Shona. I like to pick a fight with the Scottish government. But it's not so much pick a fight; it's stand up for the city, and that's what I'll always keep on doing.
Yeah, I know John Swinney and I keep getting into spats as well, and my officers come to me and they say, "I think this will upset the Scottish government, Shona," and I go, "Yes," and it's always a constant conversation I have with officers. But anyway, we must have a beer soon when we can.
Absolutely, yeah.
I know. Let this be over soon.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, listen, it was lovely to talk to you.
Okay. Right. Well, I'll see you again sometime.
See ya. Bye.
Bye.